Hello again. Sorry for the lack of videos last week. I was already worn down to a nub and then my COVID booster kicked me like a mule, all while I was trying desperately to finish some projects that were becoming increasingly time sensitive. But I'm back and here today to once again rant about Atlas and Mantle because reasons I will get into. But first, thank you to my wonderful patrons for making these episodes possible. If you want to get earlier previews and support my work, please follow the links below. It would really help me out. But first, what is realism when it comes to fiction? Well, contrary to a certain strain of thought, it is not mindless brutality, death and misery at all times and forever. I mean, not to sound like some kind of blasted optimist, but there's more to the human experience than cruelty, suffering and death. Even in the hardest of times and when the most trying of circumstances came about, people sang, shared food and shielded one another from danger. This isn't to say the evils of humanity don't exist, they very much do, but there's more to our history and our reality than the worst common denominator. Now let's talk about why Ironwood is functionally malevolent in his treatment of Mantle and why it's realistic. For the curious, this episode was brought on thanks to someone on Reddit. I don't bother memorizing the names of Ironwood stands, claiming a bunch of things, but among them were: Mantle had soldiers and robots and therefore Ironwood spared no expense on protecting it, and their refusal to do so in the face of disaster is bad writing and not at all realistic. Also, Weiss could totally patch a single small, it wasn't small, hole in the wall because they only showed one so there can't possibly be any more, and ice would totally be effective against Grimm. On point 1, I'll be the first to admit and champion that RWBY doesn't hold its audience's hand and lets them reach their own conclusion, but the main characters in the first episode are attacked by Grimm that got through Mantle's defenses, and they straight up say to the camera that the defenses aren't doing much. What's more, we have literally seen what Atlas's no expenses spared protection looks like. It's what Ironwood gave Atlas, i.e. utilizing gigantic energy shields and surrounding his flying city with his entire fleet from small vessels to gargantuan battleships, alongside paladins, specialists, and the majority of his actual army. I would also note that the battleships, easily Atlas's biggest card, didn't even try to help when Grimm was stampeding towards Mantle. We did see at least one Manta try to stall the Grimm, but they lacked the firepower to actually stop them. Keep in mind, this is before Atlas was under attack. Ironwood had no reason not to order his battleships to open fire on the Grimm, but he didn't because he thought it would endanger Atlas. I would also like to highlight the fact that the Elysian Knights and most of the soldiers active in Mantle were not only ineffective, but not serving as protection. The Elysian soldiers were acting as police, not soldiers or guards, and the Elysian Knights were filling the role of occupying force to the point of having to be fought off by the civilians when they tried to disperse crowds huddling together for warmth. Atlas wasn't protecting Mantle, it was occupying it under the pretense of protecting it and doing a shit job at even vaguely pretending to do its self-proclaimed duty, hence Grimm constantly getting in. Oh, and remember how Pietro was surprised to even see the Aesops in Mantle? Yeah, that should tell you a lot. The best of the best were only there to apprehend people under flimsy pretenses, and we see no other hunters. Oh, and Mantle citizens and even licensed hunters can't carry weapons. You know, just in case the fact this is an occupation wasn't clear enough. Someone might say, but Penny is one person who isn't even operating in Mantle a lot of the time, as we often see her up in Atlas or escorting supplies taken from Mantle under false pretenses. Penny was powerful and a good person, but she could not actually fulfill the task assigned to her, again, as we saw with all the Grimm breaking in. Oh, and let's not forget literally none of this protection even extends to the faunas living in the crater, or forget that Ironwood never bothered to update Mantle's security because let's be real here, he didn't consider Mantle a factor in his plans at all, it was just a few city blocks to him. But what about the wall? Well, let's start with the hole in the wall as point 2. As mentioned before, RWBY doesn't hold its audience's hand, so I can wholly believe there are other holes that we didn't see, but even if there aren't, that's still a gaping wound in the defenses that would lure Grimm towards it given local anxiety, so why not fix it? Well sure, except Ironwood is claiming to buy goods from Mantle for Mantle, but is actually using them for his secret project. Why not use ice or earth dust? We have seen an Ursa send Yang flying through multiple trees that could withstand cars crashing into them in real life, Beowulfs throwing boulders and being thrown by Beringrels. We have seen Grimm rip through cement. If you think ice or rock is going to stop them, I have a bridge to sell you. But also, that would still require Ironwood forking over resources to Mantle, which he has shown no inclination to do. The man never even steps foot down there. I would also like to note that these walls are clearly heavy-duty reinforced material, and that we see Grimm approaching areas that A, Lack much in the way of guards save some recent graduate, oh yeah, really sparing no expenses, Jimmy, but also B, have no obvious holes in it, which could well indicate that there are smaller breaches or even a means of breaking through or climbing over. Also, none of this addresses, flying grim. Where's Mantle's airships, force field, and maybe some heavy-duty anti-air weaponry, Ironwood? But let's address the real point. Is this realistic? Well, let's use a realistic example. In V8, when the people of Mantle were freezing and dying in the streets, Texas was hit by a major, and I mean major, blizzard. It knocked out power, it froze water sources, it barred people inside their homes. It killed real people. And what did the state senator do in response to a humanitarian crisis on his doorsteps? He fucked off on vacation. Reminder, Ted Cruz is a piece of shit. Vote him out. Oh, and RWBY critics complained that the episode being delayed by a deadly blizzard was interrupting his stupid RWBY rewrite schedule. So callous, cruel, and cretinous responses both from those in power and privileged dipshits not being impacted by the threat are actually entirely realistic. Peace out, and thanks for stopping by. Thank you for tuning in. If you want to support my work, please check out my Patreon or Ko-fi, where you can also commission 3D art. Thanks for stopping by.